Hi everyone, it's Kelly here. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time. Welcome back if you've been before. Lovely to have you either way. On this channel we talk books, and today I am filming a book haul. As always, it's a big one because I can't help myself, but it is what it is. We love books in this house, so I'm always happy to have more books added to my collection. And I always have a bit of a combination of new books that I've purchased or been given and secondhand books. So it always makes me happy when the secondhand pile is bigger than the new pile, and that is definitely the case today. So very excited to show you the books that I have acquired this month. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to start with the new books and start with the books that came from my subscription to Amplify Bookstore. Every 2 months I receive 2 books. That we're coming up to the end of the year now, so I should only have one more pack to come from them. But yeah, this is I've been receiving all of these really interesting books that are written by diverse authors from various backgrounds from around the world. So I've got 2 books to show you today, and also a little gift that came with that pack as well. So the first one, here's the bookmark by the way, Amplify Bookstore, and there is the information about them. But the first book that I got sent is called Shigidi and the Brass Head of Obalufon. This is by Wole Talabi, and it is sounds like a really fascinating book. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So Shigidi is a disgruntled nightmare god in the Orisha spirit company, reluctantly answering the prayers of his few remaining believers to satisfy the demands of the company board. When he meets Neoma, a sort of succubus with a long and secretive past, everything changes. Together they attempt to break free of their constraints and live on their own terms. But the elder gods have other plans for Shigidi, and the Orisha Spirit Company is not so easy to leave. The chairman has a final job for Shigidi and Neoma, one that will take them to the very heart of the British Museum. So this just sounded really fascinating, so this is why I selected this one out of the options that were available for this month's subscription. So that's number 1. And the other book that I got from Amplify Bookstore is this one, which is called Whites Can Dance Too by Kalaf Epalanga, translated by Daniel Hahn. So this is not written in English. But yeah, so this one is a book that's told in 3 varying perspectives. Seems like it's going to be a very reflective sort of book. So it says, hours before performing at one of Europe's most iconic music festivals, Kalaf is detained on suspicion of being an illegal immigrant. Trapped in his precarity, his thoughts soon thrum to the beat of Kuduro, the blistering techno-infused Angolan music, which has taken him from Luanda to Kristiansand, Beirut to Rio de Janeiro, Paris to Lisbon. So obviously traveling musician, well, maybe just following the music, but my guess is musician. Yeah, so this just seems like it's going to be a really reflective book, so it sounded quite interesting. The gifts that came with my subscription this month were this really cute little card. Hopefully you can see that nice and clearly, from a company called Draw Me in Style. The designer and illustrator is called Lien Chung, and they have a website, so hopefully you can read that information there. So it's just on www.drawmeinstyle.com and an Instagram with the same handle. So a cute little card, and also a set of washi tape, which I'm going to open and show you. Okay, so we've got this one. Hopefully you can see that. I'll hold it back in the light so that hopefully you can see the cute little scenes. Oh, I'm holding it upside down. Little scenes, kind of like almost like little stamps, which are really quite cute. a little roll of various items: telephone, cake, slippers, milk, ice cream. And the last one is a sort of floral shop, which looks really cute. It's got little price tags with various flowers. So yeah, nice little gift to get from Amplify Bookstore this month. Okay, let's continue on with the books. So, lots more fiction and a couple of non-fictions to show you. I was very excited to find this copy of Spring by Ali Smith. If you've seen me hauling books before, you might have seen that I've hauled both the autumn and winter books in this series. So I was excited to find Spring. So now I only need to get summer, and then I've got the full 4. And I think once I've got the full 4, I'm going to start that read in autumn. So at the moment, it's spring here in Australia. So I've got like 6 months basically so that I can start this series. But yeah, happy to now have the spring book from that series so that I'm ready to read it. Another book that I picked up at the same time as that one is this one, All That's Left Unsaid by Tracey, Lien. This is actually a book I have read, and it's all about a girl or a young woman called Ki Tran, and her younger brother called Denny was murdered in 1996 while he was out to dinner with friends after graduating year 12. No one is talking, the police have no idea what's going on, and Ki is determined to track down the witnesses and find out what happened. It's set in the Vietnamese community in Cabramatta in Sydney, Australia, which Sydney is where I live. And I really enjoyed this book. I believe I read it last year, and it was fabulous. It might have even been this year that I read it, but fabulous, fabulous book. So I was really happy to get a good price copy to add to my collection, because I know that I would like to read this one again at some point. The next one is one that I had not heard of before, and just sort of came across in my travels across the book part of the internet, and this one is called Some Faraway Place by Shippen. I believe this is part of a series of books, because there are a couple of other, it's called the Bright Sessions novels, so I don't know what that is. Now this, I believe, is a YA book, and it's all about a girl called Rose. So it says, Rose's mother can see the future. Her father can move things with his mind. Her brother Aaron can read thoughts. And Rose, well, she makes a mean spaghetti bolognese. Everyone else in her family is atypical, which means they manifested an ability that defies the limits of the human experience. At 19, well past the average age of manifestation, Rose is stuck defending her decision not to go to college and instead working in the kitchen of a local restaurant, hoping to gain the experience she needs to become a chef. But then what happens is she starts falling asleep mid-conversation and finds herself in other people's dreams. So maybe she's not so typical after all. So it just sounded like a really interesting book, and I'm excited to pick this one up at some point. Yeah, so it should be an interesting one to pick up. The next one is one that a lot of people have been talking about with excitement that it has just come out, and that is Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. I still am yet to read anything by Charlotte Wood, although I own several of her books. But yeah, this one just sounded really intriguing, so I picked it up. And I'm just crossing my fingers that I'm going to get along with Charlotte Wood's writing. But let me tell you a little bit about this one. So a woman abandons her city life and marriage to return to the place of her childhood, holding up in a small religious community hidden away on the stark plains of the Monaro. She does not believe in God, doesn't know what prayer is, and finds herself living this strange reclusive life almost by accident. As she gradually adjusts to the rhythms of monastic life, she finds herself turning again and again to the thoughts of her mother, whose early death she can't forget. Disquiet interrupts this secluded life with 3 visitations. First comes a terrible mouse plague, each day signalling a new battle against the rising infestation. Second is the return of the skeletal remains of a sister who left the community decades before to minister to deprived women in Thailand, then disappeared, presumed murdered. Finally, a troubling visitor to the monastery pulls the narrator further back into her past. With each of these disturbing arrivals, the woman faces some deep questions. Can a person be truly good? What is forgiveness? Is loss of hope a moral failure? And can the business of grief ever really be finished? A meditative and deeply moving novel from one of Australia's most acclaimed and best loved writers. So it just sounds like a really intriguing premise for a book, and I'm keen to read this one. So maybe this will be my first Charlotte Wood. We'll see. But I already own several of her other books, so yeah, we'll see what happens. But I am very interested to read this one pretty soon, I think. Okay, the next one is a complete change of pace, and it is The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Deya Muniz. This is one that I heard Easy Cat, I think is the name of the creator, on Instagram and TikTok, and he was recommending this one. It's sort of it's a graphic novel, and it seems to be quite cozy. So yeah, it just sounded like a fun one. So let me tell you a little bit about it. And the characters have appropriately cheese-themed names. So Lady Camembert wants to live life on her own terms without marriage. Well, without marrying a man, that is. But the law of the land is that the family fortunes cannot be passed down to women. So when her father passes away, she does the only thing she can. She disguises herself as a man and moves to the capital city in the kingdom of Fromage to start over as Count Camembert. But it's hard to keep a low profile when the beautiful Princess Brie, with her fierce activism and great sense of fashion, catches Cam's attention. Cam can't resist getting to know the princess, but as the two grow closer, will she be able to keep her secret? So it just sounds like lots of fun. A cute little graphic novel that was highly recommended. So yeah, I was sold. Absolutely sold. Okay, next one. This one is called After the Forest by Kell Woods. Again, one that I just sort of came across in my bookish internet travels. So this one it starts with this very intriguing little spell, if you will. Ginger, honey, cinnamon, flower, a drop of blood to bind its power. 1650, the Black Forest. 15 years after the witch in the gingerbread house, Greta and Hans are struggling to get by. Their father and stepmother are long dead. Hans is deeply in debt from gambling, and the countryside lies in ruin, its people recovering in the aftermath of a brutal war. Greta has a secret, though, the witch's grimoire, secreted away and whispering in her ear, and the recipe inside that makes the most sinfully delicious and addictive gingerbread. As long as she can bake, Greta can keep her small family afloat. But in a village full of superstition, Greta and her intoxicating gingerbread are a source of ever-growing suspicion and vicious gossip. And now dark magic is returning to the woods, and Greta's own power, magic she is still trying to understand, may be the only thing that can save her, if it doesn't kill her first. So this just sounded like a really interesting premise again for a book, and I'm really interested to get to this one. It feels like it sort of would be a good autumnal read, so I might hold off on reading this until it's autumn here in Australia. But yeah, sounds like fun. The next one is a book by an author who I have read one book by, and it was a book that won the Miles Franklin Award a couple of years ago. The author is Amanda Lohrey. That book was called The Labyrinth, and I read and enjoyed it at the time. It's a really reflective sort of novel, and this sort of seems like it's going to be quite similar in that sort of reflectiveness. So this one's called The Conversion. And I am excited. I was excited to see that she had a new book out. So it says on the back, Nick, so persuasive, ever the optimist, still boyishly handsome, always on a quest to spin straw into gold to heal wounded souls. The conversion was his idea, but it's Zoe who's here now, in a valley of old coal mines and new vineyards, working out how to live in a deconsecrated church. What to do with the altar, all those memorial plaques and the stained glass windows. Alone and troubled by a restless ghost, Zoe is stuck in purgatory until a young teacher named Melody barges into her life. Amanda Lowry's The Conversion is a startling and seductive novel about how the homes we live in shape us. So yeah, it just sounded really interesting. I've always fantasized about converting, like I have no skills, so I could never do it, but the idea of converting an old church or an old school and living in it has always fascinated me. But yeah, I could never do it myself. But yeah, now I can just kind of like live my dream through this book, although it sounds like not everything goes really well, so maybe that'll kind of like be the reality check that I need about my capacity to ever do anything like that. Okay, moving on now to some non-fiction. I've got 2 books to show you that are new books that I've acquired. One was I went to a book launch that was held in Sydney in Newtown, and that was for Deborah Conway's book, Book of Life. It's a memoir. Deborah Conway is an Australian musician whose music I've loved for a long time. Yeah. She's a real kind of interesting character, I think, in the Australian music scene, who's always sort of like marched to the beat of her own drum, if you will, but also just has sort of been a like really fiercely independent and interesting character, as well as being a fabulous musician. So yeah, I went with my mum. We went together to this book launch, and at the book launch Deborah Conway sang. I cried. I wasn't expecting to be crying at a book launch, but she just has this, and I think especially as she has aged and her voice has sort of shifted into her age, there's sort of like a new level of poignancy to what she sings and the way that she sings. So yeah, it was just a really beautiful event to attend, and I was glad to be there to experience it. But essentially what this book is about is her life. Obviously it's a memoir, but it says Conway pulls back the curtain on the fevered world of 1980s post-punk and the spectacular rise and fall and rise of one of the more obstreperous women in Australia's music industry. A woman who has straddled the high arts and the low without losing her footing or her mind. A woman who said no to the system and whose fierce independence has seen her produce her best work. Welcome to the good, the bad and the ugly of an extraordinary life from the vantage point of a music insider and outsider with a deep need to tell the truth about it all. And from what she was talking about at the launch, this seems like it's a deeply personal memoir, and she doesn't hold back about talking about everything. So yeah, I'm really interested to read this soon, I think, because I probably need to give it to my mum. We bought one book between us, but yeah, she signed it for us. It was super nice. Let me show you. So yeah, it was exciting. It was nice to go to a book launch. Have I been to a book launch before? No, I've been to book events, but not a book launch. So yeah, it was really exciting. And the other non-fiction book, I should say, because we're still in 2023, and so we're still tracking our Dewey numbers for the Dewey Decimal Reading Challenge, and this one is from the 700, so it's 782.421.66092. And the other non-fiction book that I picked up is one from the 300s with a call number of 305.89915, and it is this one, Reaching Through Time, Finding My Family's Stories by Shauna Bostock. This seemed, I just saw this one advertised, and when I was sort of looking at what it was about, it seemed really fascinating to me. So it's basically, the phone rings unexpectedly late one night, and it's the author's Uncle Jerry saying, "Guess who our white ancestors were? They were slave traders, a couple of generations of slave traders." After this startling revelation, Shauna wanted to find out more. She discovered her ancestor, so we've got a cat visiting. Her ancestor, Robert Bostock, arrived in Sydney in 1815 after being convicted of slave trading in Africa, and his grandson, Augustus John, married Bundjalung woman One Mai. Hello. Battling restrictions on access to government archives, Shauna gradually pieced together her family's stories of dispossession and frontier violence, life on reserves under the harsh regime of the Aborigines Protection Board, a cricket match with Bradman, activism and arts in Redfern, and a surprising reconciliation. Reaching Through Time reveals the cataclysmic impact of colonisation on Aboriginal families and how this ripples through to the present. It also shows how family research can bring a deeper understanding and healing of the wounds in our history. Shauna writes, "I am a proud Aboriginal woman who has always wanted to make a stronger connection to my cultural heritage. I experienced an inner yearning to find out about my ancestors and what they experienced in life. This is the story of my journey." So it just sounded like a really interesting book, and I'm excited to get to this one at some point. So yeah, so that one would work for the 300s prompt. All right, let's get into the second half of this video now, which is where I'm going to talk about the secondhand books that I have managed to pick up in the month of October. So the first one is actually 2 books from a series. Unfortunately not 1 and 2, it's 1 and 4. But the series is called the Roland Sinclair Mystery Series. So I'll talk about the first one first. The first book is called A Few Right Thinking Men by Sulari Gentill. Now Sulari Gentill has written a book called The Woman in the Library, which I read, I think it was earlier this year, and really enjoyed. So this is a backlist backlist series for her. And the first one came out in 2011. So I think, well, it won a prize in 2011. Does that mean that it came out in 2011? First published in 2010. Second edition published in 2011. Yeah, so this book is a sort of, it's set at the time, it's in the 30s and it's set in Australia. So it says, Roland Sinclair is an artist and a gentleman. In Australia's 1930s, the Sinclair name is respectable and influential, yet the youngest son, Roland, has a talent for scandal. Even with thousands of unemployed lining the streets, Roland's sheltered world is one of exorbitant wealth, culture, and impeccable tailoring. He relies on the Sinclair fortune to indulge his artistic passions and friends, a poet, a painter, and a brazen sculptress. Mounting tensions fueled by the Great Depression take Australia to the brink of revolution. Roland Sinclair is indifferent to the politics until a brutal murder exposes an extraordinary and treasonous conspiracy. So it just sounded like an interesting sort of series, and I figured even though they only had the first and the fourth one, so the fourth one is called Paving the New Road, and this one looks like it is set during, it's in 1933. So yeah, and it's another Roland Sinclair mystery. But yeah, it just sounded like an interesting series, and I figured if I really like this one, I'll see if I can get the other ones, and I've already got number 4. So yeah, that's those 2. So that's those 2. Another Australian book that I picked up secondhand is an Australian classic called Voss by Patrick White. This one is set in 19th century Australia. And it says, Voss is the story of the secret passion between an explorer and a naive young woman. Although they have only met a few times, Voss and Laura are joined by overwhelming obsessive feelings for each other. Voss sets out to cross the continent. As hardships, mutiny, and betrayal whittle away his power to endure and to lead, his attachment to Laura gradually increases. Laura, waiting in Sydney, moves through the months of separation as if they were a dream, and Voss the only reality. From the careful delineation of Victorian society, to the sensitive rendering of hidden love, to the stark narrative of adventure in the Australian desert, Patrick White's novel is a work of extraordinary power and virtuosity. So this is a book that I heard about last year or the year before, and have been wanting to read. So when I found a copy secondhand, I figured I'd pick it up to add to my classics collection, but also to hopefully get to really soon. So yeah, I'm keen to read some of the sort of like classics of Australian literature. All right, continuing on, I got a copy of She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker-Chan. So this one is all about a girl who is living in a famine-stricken village, and at the time a seer shows two children their futures: for the boy greatness, for the girl nothingness. But China in 1345 is under harsh Mongol rule, and for peasants greatness only appears in stories. The Zhu family is mystified as to how their son, Zhu Zhongba, will achieve such success. In contrast, an early death for a mere daughter is only to be expected. Yet when a bandit attack orphans the two children, it is Zhu Zhongba who dies. Desperate to survive, his sister steals his identity to enter a monastery. There, disguised as a male novice, Zhu learns she can be ruthless to avoid her fate. But when her sanctuary is destroyed, Zhu is cast back into the war-torn world. To change her ending, there is only one thing she can do: claim her brother's great destiny as her own. So yeah, this just sounds like a really interesting book, so I thought I'd pick it up when I found a second-hand copy. Next one, Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder by Kerryn, Maine. This one just sounds really interesting. So it says, Lenny Marks is good at not remembering. She has spent the last 20 years not thinking about the day her mother left her when she was still a child. Her stepfather's parting words, however, remain annoyingly unforgettable. You did this. Now 37, Lenny prefers contentment and order over the unreliability of happiness and the messiness of relationships. She fills her days teaching at the local primary school and her nights playing Scrabble with her pretend housemate, watching reruns of Friends and rearranging her 36 copies of The Hobbit. I'm a tiny bit feeling called out here, but let's continue. Recently, though, if only to appease her beloved foster mum, Lenny has set herself the goal of getting a life. Then, out of the blue, a letter arrives from the Adult Parole Board, and when her desperate attempts to ignore it fail, Lenny starts to unravel. Worse, she starts to remember. Interesting premise for a book. So yeah, very interested to get to this one. Okay, the next one is a really fascinating one that I found, and I haven't heard anything about this one, but it's called Mercury Pictures Presents, a novel by Anthony Marra. This one, first of all, what a stunning cover. Second of all, it sounds like a really fascinating book and slightly related to the previous one, in that it's sort of a, you know, the past comes back to haunt a person. So it says, like many before her, Maria Lagana has come to Hollywood to outrun her past. Growing up in Mussolini's Italy, every Sunday Maria's father took her to the cinema instead of the church. But it's because of her that he was arrested, and she and her mother flee to Los Angeles. 15 years later, Maria is an associate producer at Mercury Pictures. While the world descends into war, she rises through a maze of conflicting politics, divided loyalties, and jockeying ambitions, until the arrival of a stranger from her father's past means she must finally confront his fate and her own. So it just sounds like a fascinating book set in sort of Hollywood, which sounds really interesting. So yeah. Another recent release that I have managed to get a secondhand copy of is this one. Duck à l'Orange for Breakfast by Karina May. This one only came out this year or last year. Let me just double check. Yeah, it came out in 2023, so this is a current book. So it was really exciting to find a secondhand copy of it. So this one is about a girl called Maxine, or Max, who is an ad executive with writing ambitions and is holed up in a friend's apartment after discovering her long-term boyfriend in bed with another woman. If that wasn't bad enough, Max has recently been diagnosed with a brain tumour. Enter Johnny, a cheeky yet charming Tinder pen pal and the perfect distraction. Together, Max and Johnny flirt and cook their way through the Laurent family cookbook, a recipe book from Max's ex-boyfriend's pretentious French family, without ever meeting in person. The Fork Him project starts as a joke, but soon transforms into something more meaningful as Max undergoes brain surgery, travels to Paris for a fresh start, and decides whether she believes in herself enough to chase the life and the man she really wants. So that sounds like a really good one. But yeah, so exciting when you find like a recent release as a second-hand book. Another one that I picked up was Love and Other Puzzles by Kimberly Alsop. This one is one that, so it says here it is a Nora Ephron-esque, delightfully witty, deliciously wry and sweetly moving novel. And I was like, that is selling a book. So what it's about, though, also just sounded really fun. So it says, Rory's life is perfectly predictable, ordered and on track, just the way she likes it. She walks her 12,000 steps a day, writes her to-do list, and each night prepares her breakfast chia pods and lays out her clothes for the next day. She's doing everything right, so why does everything feel so wrong? Deep down, she knows her life and career, not to mention her relationship, are going nowhere, and so Rory, in a moment of desperation, takes an uncharacteristic step, letting the clues of the New York Times crossword puzzle dictate all her decisions for a week. Just for a week, she reasons, just to shake things up a bit. What's the worst that could happen? So it just sounded like a really interesting premise for a book, and I am here for it. I'm excited. Okay, almost at the end now. This one is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, a copy that somebody has tabbed quite a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what their tabbing pertains to. But this is one that some people that I know were buddy reading a little while back, and I was listening in on their chat about it and feeling intrigued, but didn't have a copy. But now I do. So I'm thinking that I might read it. Although it is a horror book, but I feel like it's not a gory horror. I think it's more like a kind of thriller horror, like mind stuff, which I think I can handle. So, because I'm a bit of a wuss. But anyway, we'll see how we do. But this one is all about a woman called Mary. And it says, Mary thinks she has got her wife back. When Leah finally returns after a deep-sea mission that ended in catastrophe, it soon becomes clear that Leah may have come back wrong. Whatever happened in that vessel, whatever it was they were supposed to be studying before they were stranded on the ocean floor, Leah has carried part of it with her onto dry land and into their home. To have the woman she loves back could mean a return to normal life, but Mary can feel Leah slipping from her grasp. Memories of what they had before, the jokes they shared, the films they watched, all the small things that made Leah hers, only remind Mary of what she stands to lose. Living in the same space but suddenly separate, Mary comes to realize that the life they had might be gone. Our Wives Under the Sea is the debut novel from the critically acclaimed author of Salt Slow. It is a story of falling in love, loss, grief, and what life there is in the deep, deep sea. So, love the cover of this one. Sounds quite spooky, but I think I'm going to give it a go. All right, the very last book, I've kind of saved I don't know if it's the best to last, but one that was really excited to find because of sort of the type of book that it is. Let me just pop this little stack off my lap so that I can hold it and talk about it. This book is called Classic Works from Women Writers, and it's put out by Canterbury Classics. It has gold edges, like the Bible, and yeah, it's a collection of books. So some of them are like full novels. There's also like short stories, letters, essays, poems, from a variety of authors. And I'm just going to read out a couple of those authors to you. Agatha Christie, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, Jane Austen, Elizabeth Gaskell, Charlotte, Emily and Anne Bronte, George Eliot, Anne Radcliffe, Mary Shelley, Christina Rossetti, Willa Cather, Emily Dickinson, Virginia Woolf, Edna St. Vincent Millay, Edith Wharton, Catherine Mansfield. So many fabulous female writers, and this book I got for free It was donated to my school library. I don't know who donated it, but thank you to that person. We decided it wasn't appropriate for our school library, but so we were going to donate it on to another place, and I was looking in the donation tub and was like, can I take this? Because I would love to have this copy, because it's so beautiful, but also has some really fabulous writers in it. Yeah, so it's just a variety of different pieces of writing from these authors, and I'm just really interested to get into it and sort of pick away at it. So it's not one that you're ever going to see me talk about again on this channel probably, but I'm just really excited to have it in my collection now, to be able to sort of pick through and, you know, read a little bit from various authors. So yeah, really excited to have it in my collection. All right, well, that is it. That is my book haul for the month of October. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will catch you again very soon. Chat to me down in the comments if you like about which of the books that you were excited to see me hold up. Let me know if you've read any of them. Should I be bumping them up to the top of my TBR if they're fabulous? Should I let them go on their merry way if they're not so fabulous? Please let me know down in the comments. I would love to chat to you there. All right, I will catch you on the next video, everyone. Bye.